Back here now on the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast to get to our other game that we had last night on Monday Night Football as part of that doubleheader that we saw last night. We had the Chargers and the Arizona Cardinals in the later kickoff at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. A interesting matchup for a couple reasons, right? Because these were two teams, like we said in the preview, that were very much still very far off from finding that breakthrough. I think there's still a lot to be desired from both of these teams, but they are on the correct path, I would say. They have some of the guys at some of the biggest positions on your team that you'd like to have figured out already. You know, the head coach, all their coordinators, I think, are very good. The quarterbacks, obviously, it's just about finding those, I guess, skill position players that really can make the difference in games like these, especially when maybe one part of your team isn't working or you need some sort of spark when just overall the team isn't looking great. You need guys like that to step up that can make the difference. And when you don't have those guys, you know, you get games like this, 17-15, and the Cardinals end up pulling away from the Chargers in this game. I predicted that the Chargers were going to win this game, just because of the fact that I felt like they were going to have a bit more success against this Arizona Cardinals team, but that really wasn't the case. And, Arizona, with only its second home win after losing the last two home games for themselves, they now find themselves at 3-4, which isn't too bad considering how they've performed in some of these games. But the Chargers also dropped to 3-3 now. And it was really, I guess, not too surprising based on how low scoring it was, because I think it really reflects on their head coaches that they have going, where you look at Jonathan Gannon, the defensive coordinator for the Eagles all those years, and how great of a job he did. And now he's the head coach of this Cardinals team, trying to build up that defense to the level that he would ideally want it. And you get sometimes performances like this from his defense that's able to hold opposing teams to 17 points. And Jim Harbaugh on the other side as well. You look at the job he did last year in Michigan, where they had a great defense, great at stopping the run, and just a lot of low-scoring games for the teams that he was facing, that he carries that over into the NFL, into his return to the NFL. He wants to build up from the defensive line, from the offensive line, and have a good defense and run the ball, and all those good stuff, all those good things you hear from Jim Harbaugh and a lot of the coaches that are successful. But they both, it was just a meeting of two teams that are just very reflective of each other, and that's why it was so close throughout the entire game. And it is unfortunately Jim Harbaugh's first loss on Monday Night Football, and I feel like this game really showed the lack of just difference makers, I guess, that this Chargers team has on offense. And much like the butt kicking that the Ravens gave the Bills, and how evident it was there that the Bills needed somebody else. They needed somebody to win in these one-on-one matchups, or at least scare the opposing defense to know that having him out there on one-on-one is not favorable for that defense. And the Chargers don't have that at this point, having to take some difficult decisions over the offseason, right? And maybe having to sacrifice Keenan and Mike Williams and having to make do with what they had. It's worked sometimes where the running game is very good, but other times, like this game, where the running game really never got going, you have a quarterback as talented as Justin Herbert. You need somebody there, at least one other guy, to be that go-to man. And Ladd McConkey, I think he's a good player, like very good for a rookie, but he was a little bit dinged up in this game, and still a rookie. You can't expect too much out of him just right out of the gate. So it became evident to me that, this game against the Cardinals, the Cardinals defense, like I said, with Jonathan Gannon, they can have good results. You look at the game against the 49ers, where the 49ers were scoreless in the entire second half, but to not score more than 15 points on this Cardinals team, I think that is a little bit overkill, right? They're not that good. All due respect to the Cardinals, they're not like a top 5, top 10 defense where they're holding teams to under 15. So I thought it was more reflective on the poor showing from the Chargers. And looking at the poor showing, in the running game, J.K. Dobbins having another lackluster performance, 40 yards through the ground. Last week he had 96 against Denver and they barely won, but this time he had less than half of that with only 40 yards. And in the passing game, again, you really there was a lot left to be desired, basically, because your leading receiver was Will Dissly, your tight end, with 8 receptions for 81 yards. But even still, those numbers are all right for a tight end, or they're very good for a tight end, I should say. But not when that guy is not when he's your number one receiver in an offense that still is lacking a number one guy, like talent-wise, right? Maybe if it's a Travis Kelce or a George Kittle or I don't even know, like a Sam Laporta or something like that, then you could probably make do with that because you're still very well supplemented everywhere else. But the Chargers don't really have that. All that yardage was basically piled up to just get to the red zone. They never really did anything once they got there. And Ladd McConkey had 5 receptions for 46, and Joshua Palmer, similarly, 4 receptions for 63 yards as well. And on the other side, the Cardinals didn't really blow the roof off of the place either. Kyler Murray had 145 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. And James Conner, in all fairness, he had 101 yards. He had some pretty big plays down the stretch as well. So he was probably their best player. It's still a little bit alarming that Marvin Harrison got 3 receptions for 21 yards. And I don't really think I've seen some people kind of start to give up on Marvin Harrison a little bit, or just start to, I don't know, I feel like send some more criticism his way, where obviously as a rookie, people just expect you to just jump off of the board like you've been playing in the NFL for the last 5 years. But Marvin Harrison, is still a rookie, still getting adjusted to everything, and he's already their best player. So really not having that veteran savviness to go out there and know how to, still benefit off of being the main target for an opposition's defense, and you're just a rookie and you're the best player, it doesn't really show up in the stat line where it's all based on the context around him, right? If he was maybe a couple years into the league, then maybe he could be criticized a little bit more, but this is still his first year. We're still 7 games into his NFL career, so I don't really hold that on him as much as it is just this Cardinals team isn't really built to scare you everywhere else. So why wouldn't you double Marvin Harrison Jr., right? So that's that. It's reflective of the score. And in the game, there wasn't too much offense to go around, obviously, from the scoreline. The Chargers started off the game. It appeared pretty well because they looked like they were about to score, but Justin Herbert hit a deep pass to Jalen Reagor, and just so weirdly, just so unexpectedly, he fumbles the ball and it stays in bounds and kind of just rolls out of the back of the end zone. It's so just like 0.001% of ever happening, but of course it happens to Jalen Reagor, right? He fumbles, it goes out of the back of the end zone, and they don't get any points off of it. That probably ended up being their best chance to score a touchdown all night, and they squandered it away. But still, it was Los Angeles that got on the board first. They managed to at least get 3 points first, but then Arizona responded right away with a touchdown of their own to Dortch, making it 3-7. And Los Angeles got another field goal in the first half to make it 6-7, which was the score going into halftime. And in the second half, it was pretty much a battle of just who wanted this win more, because there was a lot of ugly play, a lot of defensive stops, and more of the same from the first half, but it felt like more of a slugfest between two guys that are in the last round of a boxing match, right? Just trying to do whatever they can to just edge out their opponent. And this game, I never really felt confident in any of these two teams winning it convincingly, but somebody obviously had to win, right? And it was mostly defense showing up the majority of the second half. Still, the Chargers did take the lead, though, 9-7 with another field goal, but much like we saw in the first half, the Cardinals responded to that field goal with a touchdown of their own on that 44-yard run by Kyler Murray, and they take a 9-7 lead now. But the Chargers, very reluctant to go away. They scored 2 more field goals, and now they're up on the Cardinals 15-14. But the difference ultimately coming towards the end of the game, the Cardinals just had the ball last, and to their credit, they did a very good job of not squandering away the opportunity because there was still a lot of time left. They got the ball back with a minute 54, and maybe they score too quickly or they go 3 and out and have to stop the Chargers and then get the ball back. But with significantly less time, they executed very well in this last drive with a lot of time left on their plate. They did get helped out a little bit with an unnecessary roughness call on, I want to say it was on Marvin Harrison that he got hit around the head area, I believe. So they did benefit from that, but also James Conner having one big play there, I think going for a 20 or something like that on a little screen pass that helped them get in better field position late in this game. And, they ultimately end up kicking the game-winning field goal and taking the lead 17-15 as time wound down. And now, after a game like that, what can you learn from it? To me, we already touched on the Chargers and how they just need, I don't know if they're going to trade for someone. I highly doubt they go out and get someone like a Hopkins, or, interestingly enough, Cooper Kupp is on the market now. Apparently, it looks like the Rams are going to be willing to hear offers for him, so he wouldn't have to move too far. But, that's sort of like a pipe dream. I don't think that would ever happen. But still, I don't think they'd get a guy like that, but it's still so evident that they need at least one guy that's just unquestionably a number one type of receiver, whether they draft one next year or maybe they trade for somebody to just help them out a little bit more. But I feel like they definitely need that. And with looking a bit more just around the Chargers and how badly they need a receiver, the Chargers had 8 drives in this game, and 5 were field goals, and all those drives except one that was 6 plays, the other 4 were at least 9+ play drives in which you have 9+ play drives, and for all of those to end just in 3 points, it's very demoralizing. Even though they had a chance to win this game, you ultimately end up losing on the defensive side of the ball, and the fact that you had so many chances to just score 1 touchdown, it's pretty alarming as well from that standpoint also. So that is something that they have to clean up, evidently, because this team is too talented. They have the quarterback position. Not a lot of teams say they have a franchise guy like Justin Herbert. So they have to figure it out sooner rather than later. And the Chargers have now gone 16 straight offensive drives without scoring a touchdown. And usually allowing 17 points in a game, much like the Cardinals the other way around, usually means you're going to win a game. That's just the basis of where offenses are now. And if you're not winning those type of games, then obviously you have to try and address that as soon as possible. But for the Cardinals, similarly, I like what Jonathan Gannon is doing. I think he's working very well with this defense. Despite the injuries, they have something there on the defensive side of the ball. Having a good coach masks a lot of those deficiencies that you have if they know what they're doing. But they too need somebody alongside Marvin Harrison Jr. with another great receiver, and you add it to this running game. I think you could definitely hurt a lot more teams than you're currently already doing, because James Conner hasn't been able to get going because they stack the box, knowing that they only really have to worry about Marvin Harrison. It's too simple for opposing defenses. So the quicker either of these teams gets somebody else in there to help out Marvin Harrison or help out just anybody for the Chargers, it'll look a lot different. They're doing all right for what they have right now, so I'm not really too worried about them. But it was an interesting game to follow compared to the other ones, so we'll say that. But for right now, we're going to take a break from the recaps and touch on the Deshaun Watson injury, because it was confirmed that he was going to be out the remainder of 2024. But what does that mean for the Browns? Obviously, the remainder of this year, but going forward in 2025 and 2026, what are their options? What should they do? We're going to answer those questions in just a few seconds. You're listening to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast.
Looking